We noticed with some specific LTPs that they were kind of trying to reinvent the wheel in commercializing the technology, in scaling adoption.
Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 280 of the pod from Slator. And we welcome, of course, Esther from our London office and Daniel Sebesta out of Prague. Is that right?
That's correct.
All right. So today we're going to have a special episode for all of you. So we're going to have, on the one hand, a news episode where, we're going to go through a bunch of the kind of key news items that we've picked up over the past few weeks. But we're also asking Daniel to join and give us his take on many of these news items. So this is, I'm not sure, Esther, have we done a guest news episode before? I don't think so.
Guest news? No. Well, potentially
guest
a long
news.
time ago. Yeah.
All right. It is what it is. So Daniel is a key contributor to our research practice. He's a practicing Czech linguist. And before the podcast, we tried to, do a kind of a bullet point for his interest, but he was saying he's wearing so many hats. So I'm like, well, why don't you do a self-intro then? So Daniel, over to you. Explain the many hats you're wearing.
You're not making it any easier, Florian. Thank you for the invite. I am very happy to be here and share a few thoughts that I have on the news and on the report that I did for Slator. So some of the many hats that I wear in this industry come from the sort of intersection between language, business, and technology that I have been finding myself on the last 20 years. I'm still a practicing linguist. I translate every day. I work with Czech, German, English, French, and Slovak. So there's a broad range there already. But I also very much enjoy doing the kind of technology and business research that I do for you guys. I used to lead the language technology division of the American Translators Association, and I've been involved in many other roles in the association world.
Very good, very good. And yeah, today, in the second half of the podcast, you're going to tell us a bit more about one of the reports that we recently published. It was called Slator Pro Guide, Growth Hacks for Language Technology Platforms, which you co-authored and really led the writing of it and the research for it. So I'm excited for that. But why don't we start off with some bits of industry news, starting with what's arguably still, I guess, in the top line, the biggest player in the language industry, the core language industry, TransPerfect. Although with all these tech companies now scaling up, who knows if that still holds true. But they, announced their results, which it has a tradition that they give us a heads up when they basically finished counting the beans and and the pennies,
the cents and dollars,
and the cents and dollars. It's a few. It's $1.32 billion to be precise, which is up 7% year on year. And there was a major milestone that their CEO Phil Shaw shared with us. In fact, that language services now, to kind of what they call traditional language services, contributes less than 50% of revenue for the first time. So it dropped below 50%. Their growth drivers are really shifting. They do a bunch of media. I mean, they've been buying a ton of dubbing studios over the past few years. They're super strong in legal, clinical. They do consulting, SEO, maybe now AIO or AEO. And they also have been building out their contact center and the VDR business. So a bunch of not new, but like a bunch of adjacent areas that they're growing in. They also told us that the Global Link, that's kind of their core TMS, right? The Global Link platform, the licensing revenue grew 18%. They expanded in Saudi Arabia and the Philippines. I don't have to rattle off all the targets on their M&A strategy, but they bought like a dozen companies, I think.
At least 10, yeah, last year.
At least 10, yeah, that we know of, right? But I guess my key takeaway, and I shared this in the newsletter on Friday, last Friday, that is like, even with all this diversification, like, it's single digit growth with M&A and diversification, single digit top line growth. So kind of to me, that speaks to just how tough the market is for large LSIs. I don't know if you want to chime in, Daniel, there on just generally the market environment, maybe for LSIs.
I do agree that it's a sign or a signal of a tough market. I also wonder what this news about the proportion of language services falling to half means for the addressable market for LSIs or in language services in general. You were part of a debate on that topic very recently. And I was wondering to what extent other LSIs report their figures on such a granular level that you can actually determine what is traditional language services and what isn't in their top line, in their bottom line.
Good question. I mean, yeah, we know that companies like, for example, RWS, they would break out the train AI business separately, and some of the other, like maybe the IP and the patent business they would break out. And then, many other LSIs that have expanded into adjacent areas, that private companies, so they wouldn't have to break out anything. But yeah, if you look at the market through a narrow kind of traditional language services lens, I don't think it's growing. And we had that debate with Renato, right? That was a couple of weeks ago. That was very interesting.
I would say definitely, obviously, a tough market. We don't need to look at Transperfect to know that it's a tough market out there for LSIs. But I would point out that 7% growth is $120 million, right? So they've grown. For any other LSP, 7%, that level of growth would be like 2,000% growth. If you're a $5 million company, next to impossible to add 120 million in revenues like that overnight or in 1 year. So obviously with the M&A, with diversification, and just being the sales machine that we know that they are, they've obviously added a very significant amount to the top line. And I think that shift from, okay, we're now less than 50% language services. I mean, you could argue it's sort of reflective of the shift that we're observing and kind of commenting on and encouraging people towards, which is this solutions mindset, whereby they're going deeper into the supply chain, going upstream into the workflows of their customers, across various different sectors, legal, e-clinical, like you outlined.
And consulting them on them, also on AI, right? So they actually go in and consult and probably then, recommend their own solution. All right, that was Transperfect. Moving on to Straker. Grant Straker stepping down as CEO after 25 plus years. There's apparently a new structure, so they've appointed 2 co-CEOs, David Sowerby. How would you pronounce that? Sowerby?
I would say Sowerby, yes. He's at least based in Ireland, so you might pronounce it slightly differently.
All right. So David Sowerby and Yngwie Nopal, 2 co-CEOs, they split their responsibilities. Sowerby's taking commercial growth in global markets, and Nopal's doing a tech, AI, and product platform. Grant Straker, the founder, is leading a newly created an AI and tech board committee. And they keep their strategic focus, just AI first, language tech. This, publicly listed companies, that's why they have to announce all that. Stock's been flat. It's one of those, I guess they call them micro caps on the Sydney Stock Exchange, that despite being micro, they still have to go through all of the hoops and the pain of being a public company. So, pretty big news for that particular company. Founder stepping down after 25 plus years. So good luck to them. Any thoughts from anybody? Do you know them?
I know Indy from a bunch of conferences, and I also know that both of them have been with Straker for many years, so I would expect this to be a fairly smooth transition.
Actually, Indy from conferences, like on the tech side, so...
On the tech side, I believe I met him at 1 or 2 Taos conferences.
Got it. All right. Well, now they can join us at SlatorCon London in May, where we're all going to meet again in person. Moving on to... I was having a hard time unpacking that, so I'll hand this over to you, Daniel. The Google Translate news, kind of additional context, I think multimodal expansion. But what can you tell us about this?
For me, this is a way for Google to add a trust level, to help users see trust in the solution, because people often distrust AI, LLMs, because they're a black box, right? And now one of the innovations or one of the new features with this launch is providing explanations to those who want them. That is one way of building trust in the technology. And offering a way to control the output is another way of building trust. And they do this through follow-up prompts to fine-tune the translation. I see both of these features aiming at the trust component of the problem, because the technology has been around for a long time, but the trust has been lagging somewhat, I think.
And so this is something that would be table stakes for many kind of narrower LTPs, but now Google obviously having that insane distribution, this is big news because, yeah, they have millions of users right off the bat, but
Right.
This is not new for anybody else-ish.
Yeah, but at that scale, with that user base, like you said, and just being able to put this tool in the hands of not a few thousand people, but hundreds of millions, I think that's significant news.
On a side tangent, what did you think about this ChatGPT translate thing? That was just like so basic. The landing page.
It was so basic that I opened it once and never played around with it again. So I don't really have a more up-to-date opinion than I did when it first came out. Was it like 2 or 3 months ago? I really should go back and see what's going on with that.
Why don't we go back now? Because Esther and I had a debate. Esther and I had a debate about this.
I can't remember what my point was. I think I was just, being a bit facetious.
It's actually still saying that. So, okay, we're on chatgpt.com/translate.
Yeah.
And then it says that then there's these default prompts below. And they're saying, like, the first one, it says, translate this and make it sound more fluent. And then the next one was translate this and make it more business formal. And I guess my point was...
Then what?
Then what? So why would you have the prompt? Like, you're putting in text in a box, right? You ask it to translate from English to German. And your additional prompt you're sending with it is make it more fluent. What is that? Like more fluent than what ChatGPT would do initially? And then you're sending...
Yeah.
Okay. But makes
like
sense.
It
still doesn't make
sense.
sense.
Like it's a two-step prompt.
That doesn't reflect too well on the default solution, right? If you have to tell it in the next step to make it more fluent, what does it tell you about the baseline?
It's not even the next step. I think you're sending that prompt along with the actual initial thing, do the translation. Anyway, I stop.
Let's not rehash, because I don't think we're going to go anywhere productive. No.
I'm continuing on the record that this makes no sense as a prompt.
I think we can also conclude from this that they are not seeing this as a core feature of ChatGPT. This is visibly an afterthought and not something they're actively pursuing. I could imagine somebody at OpenAI built this in 10 minutes and put it out there.
Okay, but somebody needs to approve this at some point. I mean, I don't think they have hundreds or thousands of these like sub use case pages. So it is interesting. Maybe it's like even an SEO game or something, that there is something called ChatGPT Translate now and people don't wander off and use other solutions. But hey, okay, we went through this a couple of weeks ago. Let's go through an announcement by ElevenLabs, which, speaking of fast-growing companies, they're definitely growing faster than 7%. I think they announced that they're at like 300+ million ARR. And they struck an agreement with Deutsche Telekom. And it really, I want to flag this because it's around live translation. So Deutsche Telekom, probably one of the biggest telecoms in the world. So this seems like a big deal for kind of AI interpreting or AI live speech translation. Very much kind of deeply embeds ElevenLabs in Deutsche Telekom for live translation. They had an announcement out where they say AI support in the call. Once activated during a call, the assistant, so the assistant that's are probably powered by ElevenLabs, provides real-time support, and initial features will include live translation across languages, conversation summaries, contextual assistance, blah, blah, blah. But live translation across languages. So ElevenLabs, Deutsche Telekom, and ElevenLabs powers the live translation component. Well, to me, this seems like a big deal. So Esther, what are your thoughts on this kind of initial reaction on that?
I mean, I think it does seem like a fairly big deal. I'm personally pretty interested in seeing where these kinds of solutions are being embedded. So, AI interpreting within kind of a very, established and serious business, something like Deutsche Telekom, obviously. Having this kind of solution, I think will be quite impactful potentially. I mean, I don't know quite how many sort of conversations are happening through AI interpreting. Millions, right?
Probably millions. I mean, this is the biggest channel you can get if you're an AI interpreting or AI live speech company.
Yeah, this doesn't sort of strike me as like a pilot, like this is pretty serious level of integration. So yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see where they go with it as well. I think they said the capabilities arrive first for customers in Germany this year, and then they're going to be providing support for up to 50 languages. So it'll be interesting to see, if we get any level of analysis around how it's working, how it's scaling, what kind of challenges they run into as well.
My first question when I saw this piece of news was, has AI now come for voice calls like AI came for our emails a few years ago? And I'm thinking years ago, really, not just with the advent of generative AI as we know it. There have been basic suggested replies on Gmail for longer than that, I believe. The contextual assistance is interesting. I think that goes beyond translation. That might be features that supply information to you to continue the conversation, right? Not just understanding what your partner is saying, but supplying additional information that you might not think of in the moment. So I think this is a broader use case than just translation across languages. Same thing with conversation summaries. That sounds like what Zoom and all the likes of that have been doing for a while, something you get sent to your email after the fact. And one thing that really stood out to me was where this is happening. Germany is known for being friendly to any kind of privacy invasion, and having AI implanted into your voice conversations on the phone sounds pretty invasive to me. I would have a harder time with that than seeing the same kind of technology work in the background in my email, for instance.
It's another sort of customer support use case, isn't it? I think customer support on the written side was a very big sort of use case for machine translation early on because of the volumes. So a lot of companies were very keen to, as far as they could, bring automation to translation or chatbots within the chat and things like that. This seems like an extension into a different mode, which is voice and telephony, which I think is, in the context of customer support, very, again, I mean, there are thousands and hundreds of millions of whatever scale of customer support calls going on each day. So big area.
What's remarkable is the choice of vendor. I mean, they didn't choose anybody like ElevenLabs wasn't around in 2022, or it was founded in 2022, right? That's 4 years ago. And this arguably is one of the biggest live rollouts of like AI interpreting. I mean, if it's with Deutsche Telekom, we don't know how broad they're going to roll it out. Maybe it is a pilot and they're announcing it as something that seems much bigger than it actually is in reality. But if they're really planning to roll out in the next 12 months for up to 50 languages and they're doing it with ElevenLabs, okay, there's a few companies that have been doing this type of speech interpreting for a long time. So why didn't they get the nod? So Yeah, I think the choice of vendor is interesting, and the potential scale of this is interesting. And you're right, Daniel. I mean, like privacy. I mean, is this going to be run on servers in Germany, or is this all going to get processed in some like AWS something somewhere, right? I mean, not
Yeah.
that AWS doesn't
Yeah.
have data centers in Germany, but still.
And there are always two parties to a call, right? Even if the one party actively chooses to use this, the other party should have the opportunity to consent or not.
They'll maybe make you jump through hoops, but yeah, I will be calling that maybe in like 6 months. I mean, live translation, like, the conversation summaries and all of that, that's sure, you're going to get a summary and it may be right or it may not be right. It's not going to impact your actual, like the thing you want to achieve with a call. But if I'm on a call and I speak, German and the other person at the other end speaks English and, the translation breaks down somewhere, I'm not going to get to the thing that I'm actually trying to achieve with this call. I think big piece of news. Staying with ElevenLabs, because they do all kinds of other stuff. They also have seems like some type of deal with Lex Friedman, the podcaster, who had the inventor, or I guess let's call him inventor of ClaudeBot. Now it's called Moldbot, or Google it. It's gone through a bunch of variations, some AI framework. Peter Steinberger on his podcast, 3 hours, and it was dubbed into German by ElevenLabs, and Lex Friedman has done this before a couple of times. Now, though, it's much more voice cloned, and the quality is pretty good. I think it's probably still human in the loop. I listened to it. I think I could probably listen to this for like 30 minutes. Before that, it was more like 5 minutes. I think now we're at the 20 to 30 minutes before I start zoning out. Yeah. Have you had a chance to look at it?
I think it's only in German, isn't it? Or
Is it only
did they do
German?
it?
Okay.
I opened it. I thought it said it only in German.
You're right. It's only
Not
German. Oh,
speaking
yeah, because
German.
of course he's Austrian, right? So it's so
Yeah.
funny. Like he speaks English and then he gets kind of voice cloned back into German, which is what we did once, Esther, and then it gave me a Bavarian accent.
It's long enough though. I mean, 20 to 30 minutes is not a short amount of time in podcasting world, If somebody stays tuned for that long, it's better than them switching off in the first 20 seconds when they realize they're not going to be able to understand anything.
I haven't listened to it, but Florian, do you think it's your ever-increasing tolerance to suboptimal
No.
audio, or is it actually getting better?
No, it is getting better. And there is human in the loop. This is not raw AI. The voice, obviously, voice cloning is AI and all of that, but I think the translation, there's somebody tweaked this a few bits here and there. All right, look, a couple more out of the world of TAF. No, translation is a feature. One is from Flexport, somebody who's very active. The founder's very active on X, and they, launched. I mean, Flexport's kind of a logistics platform, trade platform. Digitally bringing trade into the digital age and yada yada, that kind of spiel. But they launched something called Flexport Translations. And we don't have to go into the details here, but the only remarkable thing is that they chose Grok, so kind of XAI for the translation bit. Now, maybe this is because the founder is so, addicted to X, because he's posting like once a minute or something. But it's remarkable that for a product translation, translation product by a trade facilitation company, they're using now like live Grok translations. So they're saying we've launched this week by translating the entire platform, including live message translations with support for English, Mandarin, Vietnamese, Thai, Korean, Italian, and Spanish. And Grok's powering this. So maybe, we hope it's not too rude, some of the translations, because Grok's trained on X. So
Yeah.
what a source to be trained on.
And then X said German's next, because they did not translate it into German. They said
Right.
German's next. We'll perfect those umlauts soon.
I'll check if it's, if I ever get a Flexport subscription, which I'm probably not. I guess these guys are super busy now with, the world of shipping in this array. All right, let's move on to Walmart, Who wants to take this? I think we had a look at this briefly before. I think it's a super interesting story. Their CPO talking about how they moved from what did they call it? The Walmart translation platform to
WTP.
WTP to full AI.
What was remarkable to me was the 99% cost reduction. That's like everybody's dream in any kind of localization program management, right? Bringing something in-house, putting technology to the task, and achieving a 99% cost reduction, while at the same time, I believe they said, increasing quality and customer trust. That's a remarkable achievement. I think a lot of our listeners would be interested in the fine print of what exactly it is that they measured, and how exactly they reduced the cost, and what the customers really thought about it.
Esther, you had a look at this, right? Can you
Yeah.
give us maybe the rundown? So how did they get to this? Is this is maybe a little bit more corporate PR, or seems there's some meat to that bone here?
I think there's a bit of corporate PR as always, but I mean, there's definitely a big initiative that they have rolled out at Walmart. I mean, just some of the figures, I suppose, huge operation. I mean, Walmart itself serving 255 million customers in 18 countries each week, they said. Hugely complex operation. And they said, okay, originally they were spending something like $25 million in, well, presumably outsourcing costs for translation, that they were translating millions of catalog items each month across 22 languages. Now, as Daniel pointed out, they said it's only 1% of the original cost, which is $250,000 rather than $25 million. And they pointed out that every single translation is done within 20 milliseconds. So, I mean, for me, yeah, it's a massive sort of cost-saving exercise, something that they can obviously point to say, we've built this, we're using AI, we're using LLMs, and we know that translation is a pretty obvious use case for AI within businesses. But they do, it's a relatively short podcast interview, but he gives some, Tim Simmons, the CPO, gives a good amount of detail, I would say, for that in terms of, some figures that I just threw out, but a good amount of detail within quite a short space of time. He goes into a little bit of detail about the Walmart translation platform that they built. So he says it uses 3 layers of orchestration. There are human cultural experts who write rules, they say. Then they point out that there's NMT models for first pass and LLMs for quality review. And then thirdly, what they call data pipes, ensuring signals are fed back in. I think where there's a bit more PR-y is around the kind of trust aspect. I didn't see any metrics around, customer acceptance or, approvals or, how it's kind of impacting in real life. I think it was around something to do with, I think just making translation available to more people and more quickly. On trust, he was saying AI orchestration actually makes us feel more human because we're translating intent and meaning, not just words. Maybe there's some metrics around that, but it seemed to be, a happy sort of secondary impact.
So you're saying that the CPO of Walmart, an organization that employs like literally 500,000 people, went on a podcast, spoke about the Walmart translation platform, and went as granular as kind of saying that first
localization spend, and then
first we have the whole human cultural experts who, interestingly, he says, write the rules. Then the NMT, so that CPO said they use NMT for the first pass and LLMs for quality review. Yep. So the CPO of Walmart is talking about NMT for first pass and LLMs for quality.
I know. I just added him on LinkedIn. Well, I tried to connect with him on LinkedIn. So let's see if he'll come on Slator
podcast. All right, cool. That's Walmart. Are there any Walmarts in the Czech Republic?
Not to my knowledge. There are many chains that are bigger than some of the farmers would like, but not a Walmart. Many of them are international, of course, so they probably have some kind of localization program manager somewhere in their structure.
What about London? Walmarts in London? No Walmarts.
I don't think so.
No, right?
Never
None
seen
here.
one. Maybe like in an airport or something, just for the, comfort of Americans arriving. I really would not know. I don't think I've seen one. It's like when you go to Paris and there's like an M&S or something for Marks and Spencers for the for the UK arrivals.
I think if Walmart wanted to be in a country, you would notice it because they work with large scales, right? That's how
They might
they.
have other brands. I don't know if they have sort of like a British equivalent that they don't
I
brand
don't
as
think
Walmart
so.
or something. I haven't really thought about it.
Good point, Danny. I think we're actually too small. It's like we also don't have Amazon in Switzerland because I think they don't like the Swiss market. It's just too small. I mean, for Walmart, we had Aldi and Lidl come into Switzerland 20 years ago and gave the local retailers a run for their money. And by the way, amazing localization by the likes of Lidl and Aldi, like totally different stores, totally different kind of ads and all of that compared to Germany. So they did a really good job at localizing their presence here. So now, how do you get to $330 million ARR like ElevenLabs? One good place to start, first port of call, is to go and get our Growth Hacks for Language Technology Platforms report, which let me spin up the cover page here for those of you who are watching this on YouTube. All right, so this is the report, Growth Hacks for Language Technology Platforms, 10 proven ways to grow ARR from top of funnel strength, sales execution, procurement realities, partner selection, integration readiness to enterprise success. Yeah, tell us a bit about this, Daniel. So we had a lot of discussions for this. You went into what we call hermit mode, researched, wrote, and then we published it about 3 to 4 weeks ago. So yeah, tell us a bit more about this, the goal, the content.
We pivoted a few times with this report, and it was a challenge to find the niche that would end up being the most helpful for a clearly defined audience. But I think we got this piece right, and we focused on growth hacks, like you said, for LTPs, language technology platforms of the sort that are external disruptors. They bring innovative tech. They're startups, scale-ups, typically without language industry lineage. And the downside with any such external disruption is that you can get blindsided at times. You may not be 100% familiar with the industry you're trying to disrupt, or you might not even realize that you're trying to disrupt a legacy industry of sorts. You bring a fresh perspective, but some of this might be a hindrance. And we noticed with some specific LTPs, and I'm not going to name them, that they were kind of trying to reinvent the wheel in commercializing the technology, in scaling adoption. And we noticed that this applied to a bunch of different elements in how they market their products. This applies to features, human in the loop, expert in the loop are still workflows that exist in the broader industry. They are not going anywhere fast just because of one tool that's innovative and helpful in the process. This applies to connectors because if the promise of AI in general is hyperscale and hyper-personalization, as we hear from so many people these days, you can't copy and paste your way to that. It's time-consuming, it's risky, it introduces friction. And one of the interviewees that we had for this report literally said that whoever cracks connectors will own the language industry. And when we talk about connectors, it's not just APIs, but deeper, more native connectors, connectors for agentic AI. These blind spots also apply to go-to-market strategies, to distribution channels, and that's the reason why we covered partnering with LSIs, language services integrators, who already own client relationships and in many cases are struggling to add an AI layer of their own to their services. So new tools for established processes that help streamline them. It's a very diverse set of growth hacks because we felt like different startups, different scale-ups needed help in these different areas. Another set of growth hacks centers around content marketing in the form of live events, training, certification, reports, and thought leadership in general, which all can add to the top of the funnel for sales conversations, which helps educate buyers about products that are in many cases category defining, products that have not existed before, and there's no precedent for buying them, and content that presents these with authority and a regular cadence to smoothen the path to a sale. We also covered understanding procurement, understanding who wants the product in a company, who pays for it, who can block it, and who simply needs a concession, because you want to avoid losing deals for non-product reasons. You want to map budget ownership early. You want to be prepared for the kinds of committees that make the final decision jointly. You want to give your sales team a range of materials to work with for these different entities in an enterprise that contribute to the buying decision. You want to support your champions. You want to remove the blockers. We also covered partnerships, different kinds of partnerships, upstream and downstream, so to speak. Partnerships with tech companies, so big tech, hyperscaler ecosystems where language technology startups, scale-ups can benefit from deeper integration. They can benefit from trust by association, so to speak, easier security reviews, and so on and so on, but also information or intelligence, access to early signals that something is becoming a commodity, early signals that ChatGPT or OpenAI will be pursuing a translation feature or not. And that's the kind of signals that allow you to pivot to a more specialized, more complementary offering than you would perhaps produce otherwise. So being part of marketplaces of these big tech companies and integrating deeply is one good area for growth for language technology platforms. And so are partnerships with go-to-market partners, so language services integrators, LSIs, but also complementary tech companies. And voice company does not necessarily have the IP for translation, doesn't need to reinvent it from scratch. So partnering with complementary tech, partnering with content platforms, content agencies, and that goes beyond translation agencies, LSIs. As good as your tech might be, enterprise clients typically need end-to-end services, not just AI infrastructure. And some of these partners likely have the human component, the process component, the relationship component that helps you fill that gap. Then we covered security because audited information security controls are something many enterprise buyers will ask you about sooner or later in the process. Many tech startups have to ask themselves, do we need to build to a SOC 2 standard, for instance? It signals trust, it opens doors, but it's also extremely costly, especially for early stage startups. They need to ask themselves and answer to their clients questions about AI governance. We all know about the black box kind of behavior of LLMs and what happens to data that goes in. Is it ever used for training, etc.? And another important consideration in this industry that relies so heavily on distributed expert in the loop workforce around the world is access governance. And with that, we covered the zero trust policies that some of the TMSs or LTPs in the, I should say, conventional language industry cover. And then in addition or on top of partnerships, we covered cases when a simple partnership is not quite enough, when you want to buy rather than partner, when you want to fully integrate, acquire somebody that was previously your partner and the partnership proved to be a productive one, but is simply not enough because, as one of our interviewees said, no partner sells your product like you do. And I would add to that, no contract and no service level agreement can account for all the twists and uncertainties of the real world, while ownership can or is more likely to account for all of that. And with acquisitions, you want near-term revenue lift and some kind of strategic structural synergy in the longer run. You want to combine companies' products in a way where 1 + 1 reliably adds to more than 2, and where you remove coordination friction, where you can offer tighter bundling, where you increase the switching cost for your buyers of each of the offerings. So, like I said, a very diverse set of growth hacks. It's a bit of a mix and match. I don't think any one company will necessarily need to pay the same amount of attention to all of them, but they can mix and match for the areas where they feel like they have some room for growth.
All right. Well, that was super, super helpful. And, if you want to go get the report, it's on our website, available now. And, we'll probably do some breakout pieces in our analyst desk in the weeks and months to come. But yeah, if you want to get all of them, all of these 10 growth hacks in one nice, 46-page PDF laid out, go and get it now. Cool. Well, it was a real pleasure to have you join us today, Daniel. Thanks so much.